Donald Trump has always been my idea of a Republican stereotype, right? Like, the fact that he's now the Republican nominee only reinforces every stereotype that I've ever had or believed about the Republican Party. And now I just don't think they're stereotypes. I think that they're truths. I think they're facts. They hate minorities. They hate poor people. And that, just take a step back. Don't think about anything else in this election. Just think about what Donald Trump represents. He is the representative of the Republican Party right now. He is the person who will represent the Republican Party in the general election. Yeah. If you are a Republican and you're proud of that, man, you lack some self-awareness.
I mean, how could this not be a disaster for purple state senators, right?
I thought you were making a joke about Kasich, who on that last map was had the one purple state. Yeah, so totally.
The fact that this is the, our friend Bruce Bartlett wrote a blog about, he used to be in the George Herbert Walker administration. And, of course, he got in trouble because he came out against the craziness that the Republican Party has been going through over the last 10 to 15 years, since Fox News went on the air.
Yeah.
So what is happening? So what he's saying is this is good. This has to happen. Mm-hmm. What he says is this has to happen, and the faster it happens, the better. And this is the guy to do it. This is the guy to absolutely wreck the party, and then we can rebuild. So,
God knows what it'll be then.
But you know what? It's funny. I mean, wouldn't it be wild if we get a revitalized Republican Party that's less crazy, and we just get a worse Democratic Party because we keep sliding farther and farther? And let's not forget why this is happening. What has made Donald Trump possible, I think, has been when the Democrats got in bed with the corporations in Wall Street and the military-industrial complex, and they slid to the right. And then they had the DLC. And they had the sister soldier moment. They had the super predators, and they gutted welfare and all this stuff. So the Democratic Party has slid all the way to the right. So now the Republicans have slid even farther right. So we've talked about this on the show before. So until the Democrats come back to the left, I don't think the Republicans will ever come back. But who knows? Maybe they'll implode and they will come back as a better party.
I think a lot of things went wrong on the Republican side that led to Trump being nominated. Mistake number one was not taking Trump seriously from the beginning. And I mean, we're guilty of that. We didn't think that he had a chance. And I don't think the mainstream media thought he had a chance. But we quickly changed our opinion on that. The mainstream media, they took a little longer and they gave him so much free advertising. I mean, the guy didn't have to spend much.
$2 billion.
Yeah, he did not have to spend much to get the type of name recognition that he already had, to be fair, but also the type of advertising, free advertising that mainstream media gave him. Then there was the issue of the establishment choosing Jeb Bush as their favorite, right? They put all their money and support behind Jeb Bush without realizing that Jeb Bush is a Bush. You know?
And a Jeb.
But think about that for a second. He's not so bright, and he's certainly not good in public. Like,
he had a
which
lot
is
of
amazing because he's a politician. You'd think he'd be okay, but he just was flailing in all of those debates, and he did terribly. So that as soon as Jeb Bush is out of the race, at that point, Trump's already leading. Then they put their support behind Marco Rubio, who's a boy, as Cenk likes to say. So there weren't a lot of great options for the establishment. And unfortunately, they just didn't put all their support behind the right candidate from the beginning.
I mean, look, once we got into the campaign, Jeb, as soon as we watch one debate, you're like, oh, no, he doesn't have it.
Yeah.
And look, Rubio tried, and he's fake in the way that a lot of politicians are, but occasionally he would get fired up, and you could sort of understand why a young Republican would like that. And if you go back a year before the beginning of the election, I'm sure that we said things about either of those two potentially being the future face of the Republican Party, not because we think that they're good guys or good politicians even, but because demographically it might be in their favor to go for Rubio, and we assume that most people bow down to established names like Jeb Bush. We're even seeing that on the Democratic side to some extent. I disagree with the timing of what Jimmy was talking about in terms of who was following who with the sliding. I think that the reason the Republican Party moved so far is I think that they found during the 80s into the 90s that you could win elections by whipping people up into a xenophobic fervor and get them to focus on their emotional hatred for outsiders and all that. And that you keep doing that for a couple of decades, and you're going to get some really crazy right-wingers. And then you combine that with Fox News, who's telling them every bad thing you believe about black people and gay people, all of it's true. Liberals are the devil. And it trained them to be ready for Donald Trump, who said, you know what, I'm going to double down. I'm going to go farther against PC culture and all of that. And so they were creating the base that Donald Trump would eventually pick up.
I think it's you're right. I think it's a combination of all these
It's a combination.
Yeah, and another thing I want to add is, the thing that appeals to a lot of voters right now is someone who doesn't act so presidential, right? And what I mean by that is, look, I don't think Bernie Sanders acts presidential. I don't think that he follows certain rules that have been laid forth by the establishment. And that's one of the many reasons why I think he's appealing to liberal voters. On the other hand, you have Trump, who has that same appeal, but he has a very different message, right?
Yeah.
He does speak off the cuff, right? You look at his speeches after the primaries, and it's chaos, but people tend to like it. The video of him entering, buildings from alternate exits because, protesters are protesting him. I think things like that actually speak to his voters and to the Republican base. It's insane that he did as well as he did in the primaries. But when you really take everything into context and you understand how disenfranchised Americans feel right now, how untrustworthy they find politicians, the two candidates that, aren't really following the establishment rules are of course going to get the support.